So we're sitting here with Chris Gates and we're talking about all those beauties hanging on the hooks back there. You were just saying you found some of those. Oh, I forgot I had this. Which one of those in particular?
Uncovering treasures during the pandemic, apparently.
Yeah. Well, even before the pandemic, I realized that I had some guitars. I was playing the same two guitars over and over again. And I had a bunch of other guitars that were in cases, and some of them I hadn't taken out of the cases in years. And so I started pulling them out and like taking the rusty strings off to keep from getting tetanus and swapping out, pickups that seemed like a good idea in 1988, but weren't anymore. And making them playable again. And then around that time I got done, because I still had 6 or 7 guitars left from back in the day. And then, new things started popping up and, online shopping and a lot of quarantine. And what are you going to do?
Dangerous. Yeah, it's dangerous.
And I saw this YouTube video of this guy who bought the cheapest 335 knockoff off of Amazon that he could buy, $160, planning on making fun of it. And when he got it, the video came out and I was like, oh my God, this guitar is amazing. I can't believe at this price point they can make a guitar this good. So I went on, I bought one, and he was right. They are amazing. In fact, I now have 4 different guitars that company makes. They're Chinese, nice. but they're phenomenal, and you got to replace some of the electronics, but I like tinkering. So, Yeah.
Well, in the before times, it used to be, and this is how it was for me, and I've got a bunch of just, silly knockoff stuff. It is, I was working in a guitar shop, and that's just as dangerous, if not more, because stuff comes in and you pick stuff up and you're off the wall and it's like, look at this thing here. Holy moly, this $100, $99 guitar plays like $1 million, and you end up spending your paycheck before you even get it.
And, I don't know that I'm a good enough player to tell the difference between a $5,000 guitar and a $500 guitar. So,
right. Well, isn't that that's part of the process we're actually talking about. But, knockoff guitars now are better than knockoff guitars when you and I were young.
Yeah, you couldn't get a $200 guitar that was worth playing, in the early 80s.
I have a 1980 Hondo. I love that thing.
Yeah, I had a early 80s Hondo Explorer that I bought used for about $90, and it was awesome. It's one of those, like, there are a handful of guitars from back in the early 80s that I literally don't know what happened to them. Like, I loaned them to somebody and they never came back and whatever. But there's a Firebird back over here somewhere that's a 75 Ibanez lawsuit era Firebird that I bought at Ray Hennig's for about $100 because nobody wanted it in 1980.
Right.
And, I grew up listening to Skynyrd, so.
Well, Bob Catlin has a couple of those, and he has the Flying V. Yeah. The Ibanez Flying V, the lawsuit Flying V. So good. It's dangerous, but it doesn't say Gibson. It says it's this new company called Ibanez.
Right. In fact, the bass that I played for the entirety of the Big Boys and Poison 13 was an Ibanez P-bass copy that I also bought for $100 at Ray Hennig, because we did, when the band started, we were both guitar players, and I had a guitar and 2 amps, and Tim didn't own anything. Mm-hmm. And so we flipped a coin and I became the bass player, and we borrowed basses for the first 5 shows and saved all our money, $120, and went and bought that bass, and I still have it. It's phenomenal.
Awesome. So, obvious here on Talk Louder, we just have a conversation and we just hang out. And you just mentioned Poison 13, I think, and you mentioned the Big Boys. Let's talk about you. Let's talk about like you and your brothers and your first 10 records in your record collection, and what sort of got you going into, like, I got to form a band. I'm just going to be in a band. Me and my brothers have a band. What was it how old were you? I mean, I already know what high school you went to.
Yeah, but for me, I mean, I grew up in Austin. I grew up right next to the UT campus. Mm-hmm. I was born in 61. So I'm surrounded. I'm in a neighborhood that's mostly college students. And when I was 7 years old, I saw the Rolling Stones on Ed Sullivan. And in that moment, I immediately knew that I was going to play guitar in a rock band. And,
Nice.
and I started mowing lawns and buying records at hippie garage sales, just anything. I didn't know what most of it was. It's like, well, that cover looks cool. And I'd take it home and it'd be great. And I'd take it home and it'd be weird and whatever. And what my first 10 records are is hard to say because I was literally buying them in grade school.
Yeah.
Like the first record I bought on purpose, like went to the store and bought new. I bought the 7-inch of Another Day by Paul McCartney and Sweet Hitchhiker by Creedence. Those were the first 2 records I bought on purpose.
Wow.
And, that would have been like 1970.
Those are both amazing.
Wow.
But that was, listening to the FM radio, listening to Top 40 Bubblegum in the late 60s, and then listening to FM as it started happening, where you were as likely to hear Jimi Hendrix as half an hour of reggae music while they went outside to smoke pot or whatever. And then like in middle school and in 7th grade, my mom started dropping me off at concerts by myself because the other 12 and 13-year-olds didn't want to go. And the first concert I ever went to was Three Dog Night. And then I saw Bachman Turner Overdrive and REO Speedwagon together 3 weeks later. And, just
wow.
Every concert that came to town, I went.
What venues were these? This is old Austin. So what?
Mostly Municipal Auditorium to begin with, and then the Armadillo, and then a bunch of shows at the Coliseum.
Legendary.
Yeah. I saw Springsteen for $2 on his very first time through town. I literally went and saw everybody. Everything I could go to, I went to. And, I didn't always know what it was, but I got to see all kinds of really cool stuff, Roxy Music. And, I went when I was, I guess, probably 16, 17. I don't know. In high school, I was working at a Burger King, and this girl moved to Austin from LA, and she was working there with me, this little lesbian girl, and she was friends with the girls in the Runaways. And like, I had already heard the Runaways, and the Runaways were coming and she could get us in. And so we went, and it was the Runaways and the Ramones. And I had read about the Ramones, but I hadn't heard them before. And so like that night, like I was introduced to the Ramones and I went backstage for the first time, and I was like, oh, this is badass.
listen out there in internet land. It's not always terrible to work at Burger King.
You had to have a job,
Yeah.
My family didn't have any money. So if I was going to buy anything, I had to work, so.
Well, the main thing is you might meet cool lesbians who know the Runaways.
Yeah,
and then
awesome.
and then you get in free to see the legendary band.
Yeah, so, I wouldn't have gone to see the Ramones, and I might not have gone to see the Runaways, but yeah, I'm glad I went to both. So
yeah.